Welcome back to the BCA podcast. And this week we have a forester from the National Wild Turkey Federation, Curtis Shaffer. And Curtis and I met a couple of weeks ago at a event that NRCS and Soil and Water, and I think Cornell Cooperative were involved with, right?
Yep, that is correct.
So I wanted to get Curtis on mostly because I didn't know that the NWTF even had employed foresters. So I was just kind of astounded by that, and so we'll jump into that a little bit. But let's Curtis, let's get to know you a little bit. Where are you from originally?
Well, I grew up in Cuba, New York, so I'm a Western New York native, and my family's from the area, so pretty much always just called this general area home.
Yeah. So you probably went to Cuba, Rushford.
I did. Yep.
Man, I can't believe they put those two districts together.
Yeah.
There's some travel between those two. So
Yeah, it was a long bus ride, and then and our bus ride felt even longer, even though I live in Cuba, just because of accommodating all the Rushford time. And
yeah, that's kind of the way it goes. I think they're consolidating some of these smaller schools to save on budget and that kind of thing. So
right.
So then, what got you into what caused you to want to be a forester to work in the outdoors?
Yeah, and I've definitely had a little bit of a different experience or angle on it than like a lot of people, especially older than me, I talked to, because a lot of them were first generation foresters. But I was lucky to be, I guess you could say definitely second, but maybe third generation, where my grandpa went to school for forestry, and then my dad is a forester. So
Huh.
that helped in kind of sending me down that path.
Yeah.
But I also just grew up hunting and spending time outside. So
Yeah.
I wanted to find a job that I could be outdoors, but also have some free time come deer season and turkey season.
That's huge. I know my daughter Emily, who you know, she always thought she wanted to be like an ECO, an officer, and then she realized that was going to be like the biggest time of working was during deer season. She's like, well, I don't think I really want that. Um, so yeah, I think doing that forestry stuff puts you in the woods more, even during those times of year. It gives you a little more leniency. So
And I
where did that?
definitely enjoy the habitat manipulation portion of like my job, but then also just the field and craft.
Yeah, yeah. Where did your grandfather and your dad go to school? You said for forestry.
Yeah, they both went to Paul Smith's College in the Adirondacks.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went there as well. But I went to the Ranger School originally
Yep.
in Wanakena. And I think I was probably on track to go to ESF after that.
Mm-hmm.
But it just kind of worked out that I was able to get some scholarships and things kind of opened up that allowed
Yeah.
me to go to Paul Smith's
Yeah.
and kind of make it affordable. But I also liked the idea of staying in the Adirondacks as opposed
Yeah.
to going to the heart of Syracuse.
Yeah. No kidding. Yeah. Paul Smith's is a fantastic school. Um, Even though I've sent two kids through Wanakena and ESF, but there's a little bit of a rivalry there. But Paul Smith's is top rated school. So
Yeah, I definitely hear all the jokes and stuff, but I think at the end of the day, there is a good connection between the two schools, and it's definitely really neat that we're able to have both of them in the state, and
yeah.
and they are, yeah, definitely both top notch schools.
Yep. Did you compete at all with the timber sports?
I never did. I had friends that did, and looking back, I thought maybe I should have or wish I had, but it was never really something I thought I would do or not. And
Yeah.
but yeah, I missed out on that. But
Well, and it keeps you pretty busy anyway. Just the schooling.
right,
I know the way Wanakena's set up is you're outdoors or indoors for the morning, and then outdoors for the evening, and then in theory, you're doing homework all night kind of stuff. But
Yeah. Well, and I didn't have the opportunity at Wanakina anyway because I was there during the COVID year.
oh
So yeah, they didn't have the Woodsman's team at all that year because
yeah,
we were one of the few schools that was in person at the time anyway.
yeah. So were you and Emily there at the same time?
I think I was the year after her.
Okay, yeah, because she was there when COVID first hit and they locked down the school.
Right.
Nobody could leave or anything. Yep. And then did you have to have a year prior of like because you of the associate's degree stuff? Did you have to have a year of school summers prior?
Yeah, I did. I went to Alfred State for a year
Okay.
because I went for the surveying program. So I kind of figured if I didn't make it into Wanakina, I could always get surveying schooling at Alfred. But
Yeah.
it wasn't much trouble to get into Wanakina. So, and I was glad to be there and definitely got the best of both worlds going from there to Paul Smith.
Yeah. 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 Wanakina puts your hands on. And like you said, Paul Smith is still in the Adirondacks. Emily went back to Syracuse, and I know she even debated going to Cobleskill because that Syracuse area was just
You really are right downtown.
yeah, very much so. So then you graduated, and what did you do after that?
After I graduated, we were cutting ash logs on some family property because I had been put it in for a bunch of jobs, and I'd thought about taking some, but I had others on my radar that I was kind of waiting out for.
Mhm.
And so I did that for a while. I cut trees in the woods and skid them out, and that was kind of fun to do for the summer. And then but this job opened up only a couple months after I graduated, and kind of sounded like the perfect fit because I
Mm.
like the organization and in it with the hunting ties and in the forestry position, and it was in my backyard too, so
Yeah.
it worked out to get this position. So I started this in August of 2023.
Okay. So that puts you almost 2 years now.
Yeah, 2 years and a month.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So you probably are feeling like, okay, now I know what the job is and what it entails, and what's an average day look like for you?
An average day, I probably spend about half the week in the office and the other half outside.
Mhm.
And a lot of my inside work is just making maps on GIS and writing forest stewardship plans.
Okay.
And then a lot of my outside work is kind of meeting with private landowners and kind of walking them through all of the stages involved in why they should want a forest management plan and how it'll benefit them, and then using that plan to help make their property better overall for them and the goals that they have for their property,
Yeah.
but specifically with wildlife habitat and a little bit towards like just sound forest management.
Mhm. So are you employed by W or I always want to do the W first, but the NWTF, or are you employed by NRCS?
I'm employed by the Turkey Federation,
Okay.
but it is through a federal agreement that they have with NRCS.
Okay.
And so like the agreement is between them, and they hire, and the Turkey Federation hires me on.
Nice.
But so like I work out of an NRCS office and with NRCS staff, but
Yeah.
so I mean that part of it, like you're saying, by now I should be having my job pretty well figured out, and I definitely have it a lot better than I did when I first started. But
Yeah.
learning the two organizations, and definitely from the federal government standpoint, it's a lot to wrap your mind around, and
Sure.
definitely a lot to pick up on the fly.
Yeah, that interagency stuff can be odd, right? Like, well, who do I answer to, or who, do I have to go to their staff meetings, or there's just always that weird back and forth, and then Doge, you didn't get Doged, right? So,
No, yeah, I haven't yet, but I
but I
have seen it. I have I would probably say that I have picked up some slack for just because of that affecting staffing.
Yeah. So, do you work solely with the private sector?
Yeah, because of it being on the federal agreement, I
Hmm.
basically all my work is with private landowners that NRCS is helping. I'll occasionally like provide technical advice for like on state-owned lands or things like that, but it's pretty rare. They want
Yeah.
me spending most of my time with private landowners.
Wow. So somebody can just come into the office and say, "Hey, I want to manage my property for turkey." Is that how it usually comes about, or are they saying, "I want to manage my woods for wildlife"? What's the normal customer come asking?
Yeah, it kind of does, but depend on like how I get connected with them.
Hmm.
Because like people that come directly to me, a lot of times they are like turkey hunters or deer hunters, or like they come from a hunting background, and so a lot of times their goals are to how can I make my property better for wildlife habitat and better for my hunting pursuits.
Yep.
And I'll get them through the Turkey Federation, or they'll get my contact and reach out that way. But people that come through NRCS can kind of come through different avenues. Sometimes they already know about the programs that NRCS provides through like EQIP and the Conservation Stewardship Program, or CSP. And so they kind of just need meet certain parameters to get involved in those programs. And a lot of times that's they need a forest management plan before they can get involved with those programs.
Mhm.
But so they'll have more broad views. They may like birds and they want songbird habitat, or they may want like their property to just look different than how it is, or they might have more like forest management goals, like kind of making their property more valuable and things like that. So
Yeah.
they'll definitely come for a lot of different reasons, and it just kind of depends on how I get connected to them, where they generally lean on the
Yeah.
spectrum.
That's interesting. We do some part-time habitat management stuff, and we write some programs, management programs. But we include our first sheet of the form that we give to them. We kind of go through, what are you trying to manage for? Are you looking for monetary return, in terms of crop tree, that kind of thing? Are you just managing for deer? Deer's pretty easy to manage for. Are you looking to get rid of invasives, non-natives, that kind of thing, pollinators, and so trying to get to know the goals and the people that we're working with, and that's probably, I'm coming to believe more and more that that's probably the most crucial part of the whole process, is to really understand what they're looking for. And the implementation isn't as difficult. Okay, you got to take these out, or you got to add this in, or that kind of thing. It's not as difficult as really getting to the bottom of what they're after.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with that and see that in that like NRCS down the road, if people are getting into these programs, is they're implementing projects on people's properties, and there are strict requirements to implement them properly, and being in agreement with the contract that people sign and
Mhm.
agree to. And so yeah, you definitely got to have that buy-in from the landowner. Otherwise it's a lot more stressful to try to get them to meet all the requirements, and because
Yeah,
they have to want to do what you're asking or requiring of them, or
yeah.
otherwise it ends up being an uphill battle.
And you have a lot more. You have access to more of those programs, like the equip program and that kind of thing, where do you walk them through that process of okay, we're going to apply for this and we're going to walk you through this and we'll get, we'll try and get you funding or that kind of, do you work with folks doing that, or do you just kind of give them the stuff and say, here, run with it?
I definitely work with them to do that. I do rely heavily on the NRCS staff to kind of bridge my knowledge gap with all of the contracting and just all the requirements that are involved. But so I try to stick as much as I can to the forestry advice,
Mm-hmm.
and allow them to help through the contracting and regulation side of it.
Yep.
But I definitely am involved in all those steps and kind of getting contracted and implementing the plans.
Yeah. So if somebody comes, like I come and I am looking for your help, and is there is it a service that I'm paying for kind of thing? Like, are you writing management plans for free for people?
Yeah, my management plans are for free
Wow.
in essence. But I think it's good too for people to see because it's their tax dollars, and also if they're NWTF members, it's their member dollars at work, because
Yeah.
my funding comes both through tax dollars and through Turkey Federation
Yeah.
members' money, and that's where like my paycheck comes from. So
Wow.
it is kind of helpful just to see the good benefits of our
Yeah.
money.
That's true. And then are you located just specifically by county? And like, are you just Allegheny County, or do you do?
I work out of Ellicottville, but
Oh, okay.
I cover Steuben County west to Chautauqua, and then
Wow.
Erie and Wyoming.
Wow.
But I mean, I can kind of move around a little bit in the state, but they want me for the most part staying within those counties.
That's a huge area to cover.
Yeah, it is.
Wow, I didn't realize that. Well, we're Wyoming County, so maybe I'll be giving you a call
Yeah.
just to get we want to manage for grouse and for turkey, because I think if I do that, then it'll manage. Deer are drawn to the same types of habitat.
Yep,
Uh,
for sure.
but turkey has been a struggle. Like they'll move through our area, but they don't stay. And some of it is probably the types of trees we have, and some of it is have an open area for them to kind of move about, that kind of thing. What what do you think? Like when you're managing a piece for turkey, give me the ideal habitat for turkey.
Yeah, and turkey, and you're kind of already describing it. I would say that turkeys are much harder to manage for on like a property scale than deer, just because deer are everywhere, whereas turkeys are they're more specific in kind of the areas that their home ranges,
Hmm.
and they're very historical too. Like they have properties that they'll kind of, or areas. It's not by like human boundaries, but they just have areas that they are in, and it's also very seasonal. So you may
Yeah.
have turkeys on your property in the fall or winter, but then in the spring they might not be there. And that's also something to kind of work through with landowners, in that, especially if they're turkey hunters, for the most part, a lot of people hunt in the spring, and so they want to be having turkeys on their property in May, or
Yeah.
in and so they might not be as concerned with other times of the year as they are with May, and so it is kind of just bringing to the forefront of everybody's mind that there is just a seasonal nature to where you'll find turkeys, and
Hmm.
uh, and so you kind of have to have a lot of ground to have turkeys on your property at all times of the year.
Yeah.
But I would say like a perfect property would have some topography to it. I think that's something that's overlooked, and so that's one of those things that we can't change how that is. We either have hills and ridges on our property or we don't.
Yeah.
And but as far as forest management things that we can do to actively manage for turkeys, they need to have good soft and hard mast producing trees. So like our red and white oaks, our hickories, um, black cherry is a good one, and even apple trees and crab apples. Some of them are native and some are planted, but and so we want to be producing food sources in that way for them.
Hmm.
And then the other big aspect that they need is early successional cover or young forest habitat,
Yeah.
and that's crucial for nesting and brooding cover. And I mean that's one of the biggest factors in stable turkey populations is just having um, ample opportunity for hens to nest and then also to hatch and raise their broods in the spring and into the early summer.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, that ties into as well also weather and predation. A lot of those are all interconnected in that if you don't have good cover, the predators and the weather can be even more detrimental. And so, kind of tying all those together
Yeah.
is important for good turkey habitat.
Yeah. Yeah. That's boy, that in itself is pretty multifaceted. I'm thinking about so a couple of years ago we did a selective harvest of some hickory trees. Made some money on them, left the tops just because the woods we pulled them out of pretty wide open. And 2 years ago, I was walking through that in the spring and saw a hen take off. So I kind of looked where she was, and she had a clutch of, I don't know, maybe 15 eggs there. Um, and then about a week later, I tried to stay out of that area to let her do her thing. About a week later, I found feathers that I'm pretty sure were hers, just scattered in the woods. It looked like a fox or coyote probably got her, and the eggs were all gone with no shells left behind or anything. So I'm thinking, man, we have been doing a pretty good job at keeping the predators down, but we've been noticing an influx of raccoons. And so
Hmm.
my guess is they got the eggs, and probably the coyote got the hen, and that early spring when they're on the ground sitting on those eggs, boy, they are so vulnerable, and the eggs are vulnerable. And you got to have managing, like you said, managing for predation. I think people forget that. They forget good habitat can help. It'll go a long ways to protecting those eggs and the poults even after they're hatched. But
Right. Yeah, and I mean, I think that's too like a lot of people do recognize that there's more predators around than maybe there used to be, but but the habitat component isn't always mentioned in that what the tool that it can be. And even if we can't get rid of all the predators, if we have better habitat, we can set the hens up for better success kind of
yeah,
naturally on their own.
yeah,
But yeah, it is interesting too in that we think about predators that are like killing adult turkeys, but
mm,
also just nest predators like the raccoon or possum or small ones that maybe they are not going to get a turkey, but they can eat the eggs, and that's
yeah,
kind of the same thing in the end.
yeah, yeah. And trapping is not isn't something that a lot of people pursue anymore. Small game hunting has kind of gone away, and um, but we've said, okay, we gotta we gotta get back after that, and
Yep.
and at least shrink that population down some if these turkeys are going to have any chance. Um, the so when somebody says they want to prescribe for habitat like that, what is you or they want to work habitat like that, what do you prescribe for, um, like for brood habitat? What is your what do you tell people to do in that case?
A lot of times in those instances, I'm prescribing like small patch openings or
Mhm,
like kind of small scale clear cuts or seed
mhm,
tree harvest. But a lot of times I don't try to manipulate people's properties just based on what they want. I also try to work with kind of the hand I'm dealt per se, as I try to work the forest that they have in a
Yeah.
manner that's best for their property.
Yeah.
And I mean, a lot of times you can tie all that together with their goals, but and then still make better turkey habitat.
Yeah.
And so I mean, with those patch openings is just to create a flush of new young growth, and so you can either work with the ones that are kind of already there or
Hmm.
create them from scratch. But a lot of it's just to get that new flush of growth, which is going to have a bunch more species and a lot more food availability. And it's better for insects and pollinators, and it's better for songbirds and turkeys,
Yep.
and produces a lot of deer browse. So those patch openings are definitely good for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. We've found those to be hugely beneficial. The problem is in New York State, like after 3 to 5 years, you want to burn them back, and New York makes burning very difficult. You know, with the only burn boss being in Eastern New York. I know that they're doing some training and stuff with DEC to change that, but um, to find ways to even to mechanically set it back and get that early successional back is difficult. I don't know. Do you see any changes in that coming?
Um, I don't know. I mean, I know there's definitely like New York is definitely a little slower than some of the states, but I feel like I have seen like slowly changes in ideologies behind burning and prescribed fire. In like I know like Region 8 is doing more burning kind of grasslands, and the Albany Pine Barrens does stuff,
Yeah.
but it it definitely won't be anything quick or fast. But seeing more of the wildfires around too, I think also will kind of move that needle a little bit, in that the prescribed fire can help limit the destructiveness of
Yeah.
wildfires too, just because it lowers the fuel loads.
Yep.
But I don't know. That also is kind of property dependent too. Like out here in Cattaraugus County, where we're dealing with a lot of maple and cherry, I wouldn't say that those properties are well set up for burning if
Yeah.
our end goal is to regenerate trees. But if we are just trying to regenerate like grasses and herbaceous growth, then maybe it would be.
Hmm.
But when you get into more of like the oak hickory forest type, which we do have because we're kind of right on that dividing line between PA and New York, but they're a little bit better at um, producing with fire and
Hmm.
naturally needing fire for their regeneration. But I wouldn't say I'd be too worried either way if fire was allowed or not allowed in New York, just
Yeah.
because I don't know. I don't see it as a tool that would be extremely beneficial in our area.
Yeah. I'm thinking because we've got some. They're pretty near. I mean, other than size parameters, they're pretty close to clear cuts, and that native seed bed has just exploded. Think about like the landing that we looked at on that piece that you did the tour on. To set fire to that after 4 or 5 years and to set it back.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm less worried about the regen of trees. I'm more more concerned about that herbaceous growth. Wanting to get that reset, so I'm not getting trees coming back in there. But um,
I would say too, on that scale, you can do a lot of the same principles with a brush hog or a mulcher
mhm,
head, but it
yeah,
is definitely more expensive and time consuming, but pretty
yeah,
much the same end results if you're trying to limit woody growth.
yeah, yeah.
But I would say too, that does kind of all tie into the goals and also what the property looks like, in that do you want your patch openings to be in the same spots forever, or do you want to work around your property in a manner that my patch openings here for now, and that
Yeah,
because that's the area I decided to regenerate, And then am I going to work around my property in some fashion to over time regenerate maybe the whole thing or like a larger portion of it, but doing it at a like an interval?
Wow, that's a great point, because I think most of my thought is I don't want to spend 4 months ever again having to clear that 5 acres. And so, you know, I'll just keep clearing it. But you're right; it kind of makes sense to let that regenerate and then do another patch. You know, that's there's some really good wisdom, I think, in that too.
Well, and I think too, I think the reason that's kind of always on the forefront of my mind is a lot of the properties I deal with are they all basically look the same, and it's
Mhm.
basically how a lot of New York State forests look, in that they all regenerated like 100 years ago after all the farmers moved out of the state, and so all the trees in the state are the same age, and then in like from the 70s up through they had been kind of gone back into, and they had produced really great trees, really big, valuable trees.
Yep.
And most of the management practices across the state have been high grading.
Yep.
And so a lot of these properties that I'm working on are now in a degraded state where they've been highly manipulated or cut over extensively. And so we have a lot of kind of intermediate trees that are runts, and they're not growing well, and they don't have great crowns, so they
Yeah.
don't produce great fruit, and they don't grow fast or productively. And so I mean, just a lot of the state is in this kind of even aged, very similar look and feel,
Yeah.
which isn't great wildlife habitat, and it's not good for economical forestry either. So we're not
Yeah.
really meeting any of our long-term goals, and so a lot of them need some regeneration involved.
Yeah. I wonder too if like that a lot of our property, whether it's private or public, in the southern tier, look just as you said. I wonder if it's gonna rely more on the private side to change that. You know what I mean? Like if for private landowners to say, "Well, I want it," I'm motivated to make a change so that the deer or the turkey or the grouse or whatever you're managing for is going to be, this is better habitat for them. Because I don't think just I had Emily on last week or 2 weeks ago, and we talked a bit about the difference between the private sector and the public sector, and how slowly the public sector moves. And usually they don't have a stated goal other than, oh, we could make money on this. And so it seems like it's really slow going. It takes years for them to get a bid, and then a cut actually done. um, I wonder if what you're doing on the private side might make more sense and have more of an impact for us here in Western New York.
I think definitely public opinion is always at the forefront, both for private landowners, but then also people working on public land, because they're the ones that will shut down jobs and stuff on public ground if they're not in favor of the work that's being done.
Mhm.
So I think public opinion is very important. I also think that I think opinions have changed a lot on this matter, and I kind of see deer management as being one of the bigger needle movers in that there are a lot of deer hunters, and they have over time figured out that like young forest and these habitat components make their deer hunting better. And
Yeah.
but I think it is a slow process. I think the biggest thing when it comes to the public or just private landowners in general is we have an idea in our mind of what a forest should look like, and a lot of times when you kind of start to draw that out of them, it might be very different than the goals that they're stating,
Yeah.
or like what the wildlife on their property that they say they want to manage for, how they want the forest to look.
Yeah.
And I don't really think there's anything wrong with that, because I think there is a look and a feel component to our properties that we should want to attain to. I think it's just kind of changing our mental
Yeah.
preconceptions about what these forests and properties should look like, and kind of merging those two goals together.
Yeah. Yeah. You're absolutely right with that. And doing absolutely nothing is always a management option.
It is, yeah.
Which who was it that said it was one of your professors that used to say that all the time from Wanakina. I don't remember which one it was, but whatever. But yeah, doing nothing it's a management tool. It's not always the best one, but it's not always the wrong one either. And
Right.
but I think you're right. I think people often think, well, I want my woods to look like a park, cleaned up and no deadfall or brush on the ground and that kind of thing. I want to be able to see all the way through the woods, and um, for some animals that's ideal, but for what we were managing here in New York, it isn't always the ideal. But yeah. Um, yeah, and the other piece to that too is how much do you work with the DEC? Do you interact with them much?
A little, but not very often.
Yeah.
Occasionally, because of like there is some overlap in landowners that are working with NRCS may also have 480A plans on their property. So
Hmm.
kind of, or maybe that's the management plan that is being used for the
Yeah.
property.
Yep.
So there is a little bit of that, and then also occasionally, like working on like wildlife management properties or even state forests, because I would say in general, a lot of the goals that are being put out by the public and by private landowners, the main one that moves the needle for forestry work to happen on the ground is wildlife habitat.
Hmm.
And I mean, that's a big historical shift, because 50 years ago, you would have said that it was for timber money, but
Yeah.
now it's very much so. I would say one of the bigger ones is recreation and wildlife habitat.
Yeah.
So I'll occasionally interact for purposes like that, but it's pretty
Yeah.
limited.
The thought that caused me to bring that up is that we used to have a lease in Hinsdale, um, and which is not far from Cuba. We had about 200 acres, and um, the deer management permits that would come out, it was always a low draw for your first tag and no draw for your second. And neighbors were always complaining, well, we can't ever get them. And right across the road on 16 is a medium draw. We can get them for there. Let's just drag the deer across the road, kind of thing. And it got me thinking, okay, really what we need to do is change the habitat. Let's start doing some habitat work in here that will cause the deer to be here, to cause the DM, the DEC rather, to say, okay, well, now we're seeing better deer numbers. We can give you more, we'll release more permits. But there weren't a lot of people that jumped on board with that. And it was a lease, so I didn't have any, real pull on that either. So, but
Yeah, and we definitely see like there is a lot of variation in the deer numbers in
mhm,
our region, and we also have, like, I live in 9W and I know 9P is kind of the same way as you're describing. That's another big management unit.
yeah.
And that is part of it too, is they're so big, the units. And then also there is just a lot of variation between, we have tracks that are bordering on like big forested tracks with just basically trees.
Hmm.
But then we do also have quite a bit of agriculture. So
Yeah.
yeah, kind of that fine line where there are heavy or high deer numbers in some of those bigger agriculture areas, but it's not far, and it might just be just trees for a ways, and there's not as many deer. So
Yeah.
there is a lot of variation in kind of this part of the state.
Yeah, for sure. Have you so we did a lot of trapping when we were on that lease, and it was right about the time that Fisher opened for trapping. We got a couple of them, And that first year, the pelts were going like, we got a female that went for $120 on a Fisher pelt. Um, are you seeing an impact of the Fisher on turkey? I mean, because they are well known to take turkeys right out of their roost, and adult turkeys. Are you seeing any kind of impact from that?
I don't know if I'm seeing it per se, but I would definitely say that's one that's not always well known by everybody, that it is another predator of turkeys, and so that is just another one to add to the list.
Yeah,
And and yeah, I've heard the same thing where they will get them right out of the roost, so
yeah,
they're not just having to watch for predators during the day, but also at night.
yeah. What would you say the overall health of the turkey population is, at least in our area? I don't know if you could speak to all of New York, but
Um, I would say that it is it's stable right now, and it's down from like the historic highs based on like DEC kind of population trends, and a lot of that they're gathering through like the summer surveys, and then also like based them on harvest reports. And but that would have peaked around like 2008 2009, and
yep.
that was kind of the high point for like a lot of the Northeast. And so we're down from that, but we've kind of stabilized.
Hmm.
And I mean, that's most of what I can speak to,
Yeah,
mainly because my forestry background, there's other biologists and stuff that would be able to better
sure.
speak to that. But
Yeah. From a forestry perspective, then what's one or two things that our listeners can do? And maybe we've already covered it, but um, what can we be doing to at least encourage that they remain stable or even increase?
I think some easy like management practices that landowners could implement would be like the crop tree release. So releasing or opening up around some of our best trees on our properties.
Mm,
And a lot of time they'd be mass producing trees, but they wouldn't necessarily have to be just the ones we always think about that produce acorns or hickory nuts, but just any of our best trees on our properties with a large and deep crown that's well positioned for long-term standing in our forest. So allowing them to grow better. You could also plant trees like fruit bearing or nut bearing trees that'll produce mast.
hmm.
And then some other practices would be creating those early successional openings, or a lot of times that might be something as simple as cutting a half acre aspen stand. That would be maybe the simplest.
Hmm.
Or it might be doing a little bit of a larger scale, like seed tree harvest, where you're kind of leaving some oaks and cherries or whatever good trees you have on your property, but then cutting a lot of the rest to open it up for regenerating. And
Yeah,
so I mean, there are easier tasks that people could go for. There are also more complicated ones, but a
yeah,
lot of them are all kind of reaching toward the same goals and end objectives.
sure. And they need some bare ground for bugging and scratching and stuff, right? I mean, or at least leaf cover kind of thing too, right?
Yep. Yeah, I mean that too. Like they don't spend all their time in the woods. They'll also use fields and kind of other openings like that. And definitely insects are very important for the spring and summer, especially for the poults, because they grow very rapidly, and it's also important for them to grow that quickly and that so that they can start flying
Mm-hmm.
like just a couple weeks after they hatch. And that's a big milestone to reach for them, because then they can start roosting in trees and they're not spending the nights on the ground.
Yeah,
But and a lot of that nutrition comes from protein from insects.
yeah. It's funny. I've had some pretty large clover plots, and that clover gets pretty high. Um, and one of my concerns has been, can the poults get through that? Um, and I think it's pretty thick for those small poults. I think we gotta. I froze up, I think. But I got to continue to think about, how do they have access? Can they get the bugs in there? Can they get through there? It's just always, it's a different way of thinking. I've always thought, oh, the deer are going to eat this clover. I'm providing food for clover, but you also have to think about how do the poults and the turkey make their way through that? Can they transition through?
Yeah, and that is important for like our herbaceous growth, and making sure that there are like that it's traversable for a poult, and so
Yeah.
that they can get around and move and also hide from predation. A lot of times, like as far as food plots for turkeys, I'd maybe recommend like the clover, but then maybe oats or buckwheat mixed in, because that allows it to be a little thinner, but on
Mhm.
the ground, but it does provide like aerial cover from
Yeah.
predation, and that allows them to move about and feed on insects, and then the seed heads later in the
Mhm.
summer, but
That's a
it
good
does
thought.
provide cover as well.
Yeah. So, Curtis, a little more on the fun side. Are you a deer hunter or a turkey hunter?
I hunt both. I don't know if I would be able to say which is my favorite today,
Yeah.
but I like hunting in general, so
Yep.
spread it out across as much of the season as I can.
Yeah. Do you have like either a turkey story or a deer story that you can share that like this was one of my favorite hunting stories in the woods, whether it's turkey or deer or whatever?
Well, I mean, I feel like for I think my appeal to turkey hunting is just the early mornings and just all of the sights and sounds, and
Yeah.
just how pretty it all is, and I would say that's like the appeal for turkey hunting for me. And yeah, I just like enjoy like waking up with the woods, and hearing the turkeys gobble and everything. So I mean,
Yeah.
I love all my time outside, so it'd be hard to whittle down one, but
Yeah. But it's when you hear that gobble in the spring woods, whew, there's nothing like it. And then when you can actually get them to talk back to you, it's like this is just incredible. I
yeah,
love those mornings where it's there's a little bit of a cool temperature still, and um, that waking up with the woods. I love. I mean, you say that, and I can put myself right back there and be there. And it's just I love it. So, and you're in the woods quite a bit during your regular week.
yeah, I would say I'm usually out a couple days a week, so I'm
Yeah.
kind of 50-50 on inside and outside. But
So you get to walk a lot of dirt though. You get to see a lot of different places or different pieces.
yeah, I get to travel around a lot, and I get to meet a lot of interesting people, and I would say that is probably my favorite part of the job, and just meeting other people with different ideas and different goals, and a
Mhm.
lot of times their property, that's kind of their investment, or like that's their big purchase, and
Yeah.
so they have a lot of stock in it, and they're invested in wanting to make it better, and use it to the best of their ability. So that's a
Yeah.
lot of fun getting to work with them, and kind of help them along through that.
Yeah. Do you get to go to the NWTF convention?
I have been before, yeah, and that was a very neat experience, and just being able to be there for that. And I would say like that's something I really enjoy about the position I have as well, is just the connection to the outdoor industry.
Hmm.
Just because I grew up watching hunting TV and things like that, so yeah, getting to kind of see or meet these people that are kind of big in the industry, and kind of be a part of that is very
Yeah.
cool for me.
Yeah. It is. I have not gone. I was asked to go this coming year, but I do the Harrisburg show, and so that's a 10-day stretch in addition to being a full-time pastor, and it's hard to be able to get that kind of time off, and so One of these times I'll get somebody to cover Harrisburg for me, and it's usually the week after or the week before the Harrisburg show. I think it's usually the week after, and so um, that would be a really long stretch, but I'd
That'd
love
be a
to
long
go.
run.
Yeah, yeah, but I'd love to be able to go and experience it at least once. So cool. Um, so I'm going to ask you one other question, and you can answer it if you want to or not. But there are people who will um, on social media. I did a little bit of stalking, as you know, because I had to request to follow you on Instagram. But you had a scripture verse on there, and people will often do that. And sometimes it's something that means something to them. Sometimes it's not. What is Philippians 1:6 for you?
Well, for me, that verse is a good reminder that the things that are happening in life are all by plan or by purpose. They're
Yeah,
not on accident,
yeah,
and just that there is an end goal in mind, and it's not written by me, but it's ordained by God, and
yeah,
He's ordering all things to that end, and so just kind of being mindful that um, what trajectory I'm on and kind of where I'm heading, and being mindful and present of that,
yeah.
and also just everything that He is for me in Christ, and so
That's cool. I was hesitant to even ask. Sometimes people are they don't necessarily want to share that side of their lives, but I really appreciate you being willing to be transparent on that. So,
well, and I like the heading or the like your goals of your podcast, the faith and the family and the outdoors. That was really how I was raised, with those tenets and in
yeah,
that order too. And so that's very important to me. And I see the how they're all tied together as well. And it's just
yeah,
so it's
yeah,
not on its own or anything.
yeah. And you touched all those bases too, with even talking about your grandfather and your father and walking in their footsteps. It's clear they've raised you right, and it's man, what a pleasure it's been to get to know you a little bit and to have this conversation together. So, are you're off Friday for the 4th of July?
Yeah.
Do you get Thursday as well? Are you like two of my kids work for the state? They both work 4-day weeks. Like, are you kidding me? But do you get Thursday off too?
I have Thursday off. Yeah.
I need to get one of those jobs. Although they tell me I only work on Sundays, but that's kind of the ongoing preacher joke. But so, well, Curtis, thank you so much. This has been a great conversation. Where can people reach out to you, connect with you if they want to talk about management or to follow what you're up to? Is there places to look for you?
Well, they could probably. Well, I could share my information with you, but they could probably find it as well on the NWTF New
Okay.
York website.
Yep.
I like there'd be you could connect with myself or the district biologist for the area or some like New York specific staff.
Okay.
But email works pretty well. And
Okay. Yeah, I'll put a link to the NWTF New York staff page, and then I'll put that email on there as well. So folks, if they're looking for you, they can reach out and get a hold of you. So
yeah, and I'm always happy to answer questions, and more time I can spend outside on walking with people's properties and talking with them is better for me.
yeah, absolutely, and it'll probably be better for them too.
Yeah.
So cool. Well, thanks so much. I really appreciated you. I really appreciate you taking an hour of your day and instead of being in the woods, being in the office and chatting with me. So
Yeah, thanks for having me. I always enjoy talking about forestry and wildlife habitat, so
yeah,
happy to do it.
good deal. Well, folks, thanks for listening, and we'll look forward to reconnecting next week. God bless. Uh, there we go. So we're good. Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. I enjoyed it.
Good. Hopefully, it wasn't too painful.
Hopefully, it all sounds good on the other end.
Yeah, I'll play it back and we'll make sure we're good. But I think we're pretty well covered. So, all right, dude. Thank you, and I may end up connecting with you again specifically about our, our efforts with turkey. So,
Yeah.